Hi, Claire. So good to see you. So I'm just, this is our first meeting of our online prophetic community that we've got, and it's a shame you can't be with us live, but it's just great to have you be able to do this interview with you and do this recording that we can show to folks. So guys, with the community, it's called the Fireplace, just to let Claire know. We're called the Fireplace, where people can gather around the fire, chatter, and have community. So I've got to know Claire over the last 5 years. Claire's married to Warren, and it's been a real honor, real privilege to get to know both Claire and Warren. They have been an amazing encouragement to come alongside me in the spaces I've been in prophetically, and it's been wonderful to get to know them. Claire and Warren are involved in the Tees Valley Community Church, which is part of Salt and Light Ministries, and Claire in more recent years has been involved with the British Isles Council of Prophets. And so Claire has been on something of a prophetic journey over years and things. So I've got a few questions just to stimulate some story, Claire, and if you can just tell us a little bit, how did you first come into hearing God's voice?
Well, just first of all, hi everybody. It's really great to be with you. I am sorry I can't be there in person. I always much prefer meeting people. I love people, so I'm sad I can't be there and chat with you in breakout groups or whatever shape it might take. But thank you, Kevin, for inviting me. And as you say, we've become quite good friends, haven't we? The three of us, at least. So
good.
Yeah. So I'm honoured to have been asked. So yeah. So what was the first question? How did I start?
How did you come into hearing God's voice? What happened?
What was the first thing?
Yeah.
Well, I think I've grown up in the church. I mean, when I was a child, I was my parents were in the Brethren in Scotland. Okay. So I was a Christian from a very young age, and then my dad moved from Scotland. My parents moved from Scotland down to London because my dad got a different job, and we went to we had left the Brethren at that point. We went to a Baptist church, and then when we moved to London, we lived in Buckinghamshire, and we went to Gold Hill Baptist Church, which some of you may have heard of, which is where Malcolm Duncan recently was based. At the time, it was a pastor called Jim Graham, who was there. And little did we know that when we came into the church, my mum and dad probably knew, but the church was really experiencing a massive move of God. I kind of came into this environment as a teenager, probably from the age of about 12. So I would have been about that age, joining the youth work there. And I came into this environment where the Holy Spirit was just really on the move. The gifts of the Holy Spirit were all fresh and new, and in the church. And it was a very exciting sort of environment. And at that age, you just think that's normal. You don't don't necessarily have any kind of template for that. So I've always been very artistic, and I was artistic at school. I was part of the worship team in Gold Hill Baptist Church, and the worship pastor was good friends with my mum and dad, and he was round our house one day, and I had made at school, I had made some praying hands, like out of clay, which I've still got to this day. And this worship pastor saw this and asked me if, and I was good at drawing and painting and stuff, and he asked me if I would like to do a painting on the platform of the church. Okay, like listen to God. I would have been 15, I think, at that time. Just around the time of my O levels, and he asked me, if I would like to listen to God, because this was a new thing. Do you remember those days when that was like everyone was doing that at Spring Harvest? Painting on platforms and things. I know we still do it, but that was like so radical.
It was,
So I just, like a well-behaved child, thought, well, a grown-up's asked me to do something. so I should probably do it, you know. He was very encouraging. So I up to that point, I had never really known that I'd heard from God, if you know what I mean. I probably had.
Yeah.
Because I was very artistic, I probably had a mix of hearing from God and imagination. I had a very vivid thought life, you know, and vivid kind of imagination life.
Fantastic.
But I wouldn't have known which was which.
Yes.
And I probably wouldn't even have thought that God was speaking to me anyway. So I did this thing. I stood on the platform, traditional Baptist church with a very tiny little platform with stairs up.
Yeah. Wow.
And during the worship, I realized once I stood up how absolutely terrified I was. I was absolutely beside myself with terror. Set up my stuff, and during the worship, I was literally begging God to speak to me, begging God to put something in my head, you know, because I stood up and realized what was at stake, you know, what I felt was at stake. And I was praying throughout the worship time, and a picture just began to form in my mind of like a cracked riverbed, like a cracked like an African riverbed. And as people worship more, I could just see hands pushing up through the ground in this riverbed and reaching up, and then rain falling onto this thing. So that's what I painted. I painted a dry riverbed, and I painted this hand. And then they asked, you know, I was sort of interviewed on the platform and asked what it meant. And that I just described it. I just said, well, I saw, you know, people reaching up to God. I don't know what I said. You know, I was 15, so it wasn't very eloquent. But that was the first time, and I knew it was God because I had asked him, because I was praying like mad, and that's what came into my mind. And so, you know, the circumstance was set up really for me to have to ask God to speak to me. So that was the first time really, but it wasn't like that was the beginning of a prophetic journey. There was then a very, very big gap. So I didn't do it again after that. And I have never done that again, actually, live painting. I think I was scarred for life by the terror.
Well, let's move you on a little bit then in terms of that. So obviously a bit of a gap, but obviously you've been on the journey. Tell us about, you know, one or two people that have shaped you. What have they meant to you? How did they draw that out of you? What were they to you? These one or two folks.
Well, this was the question that I knew I would have the most difficulty with, because it just having one or two is actually quite hard. But if I go back to sort of early days, and just to kind of set the context, I have actually been very, very privileged to have always grown up in an environment, grown up prophetically, I mean, and physically, in an environment where the prophetic was honored, was sought out, was handled pretty well, not always, but generally pretty well, and valued, you know. So there, I could point to a lot of people really who have, you know, have shaped that. But when I was really, when I moved to Newcastle to go to art school, and backslid for quite a long time. I was away from God, you know, was kind of, you know, not forced, but, you know, when you go to art school, you're encouraged to find yourself, you know, and I had all those doubts about whether I would actually be a Christian if I hadn't grown up in a Christian family and all that. It was a very liberal art school. And eventually, you know, cut a long story short, I started to go back to church when I started to go out with Warren. And we ended up in this house group with a lady called Dorothy Neal. I don't think anyone will know her, but this lady who led this house group. And she was a prophet, and she led the house group like a prophet. So all we ever did was prophesy and pray for each other. And if it was your birthday, you sat on a chair in the middle of the room,
Wow.
and everyone gathered round and prayed for you. And there was like 30 people in this group, so it was somebody's birthday nearly every week.
Wow.
But that was just expected. It was expected that we would all hear from God. It was a Pentecostal church. Actually. I had been in every flavor of charismatic church and non-charismatic. So Dorothy was very kind of influential in just setting an atmosphere where you could just have a go, and there was an expectation in the atmosphere all the time that God does speak, and he wants to speak to you.
Wow. And that gave you a confidence to just go for it, and this expectation. That's amazing.
And I probably would have, because I've grown up in the church, I was also quite a confident prayer. You learn how to pray. So even when I wouldn't have felt confident to prophesy as a package, I would have probably been praying prophetically. I've always been aware when I'm praying that there's things that I'm praying out that are coming through, like a flow.
Very good.
So Dorothy was one.
Amazing.
Wow. I would say both my sort of most recent pastors, so Martin Dunkley, who you know, but before him, in Newcastle, Clive Harding, who was our pastor as young adults, really, as newly married people, and he has always raised us up as leaders. So Clive's gifting, really, he's very prophetic, but he's particularly good at raising young leaders. And giving people a go, giving people a chance, and encouraging people, and he's very good at seeing gifting in people and knowing what it is, and then being able to kind of push them in the right direction.
Fantastic.
So Clive, and then Martin Dunkley, who you know. Again, Martin is a different sort of character to Clive. But he really values the prophetic.
He does, doesn't he?
And he actively invites prophetic people in to speak. And I know that I could send him a text anytime just saying, this is what God I feel God is saying, and he'll never say, well, I'm not sure about that. Even if he isn't sure about it, he'll say, well, I'll pray about that.
I'll pray about it. Yes. Fantastic.
And again, he makes room for the prophetic. So as a leader, as a apostolic leader, he creates he's created a culture where the prophetic is valued. Not just on Sunday mornings, but throughout the whole church and in leadership decisions and things like that. So tell us
a little bit more about that prophetic culture then, actually, because there's going to be people here going, ooh. Can you unwrap that a little bit? I know, Martin, and absolutely this freedom to pull out the prophetic is just there, but in practice and practically, how does that work out?
In practice, in terms of what we do, I mean, what we do with the prophetic, is that what you?
You can tell us almost anything at this point you want to, Claire. How does then the prophetic flow? What practices have you got set up? How do you, even developments, those sort of things? How does that work in this apostolic community that you're talking about?
Well, my husband and I are part of the eldership team. So the eldership team is a range of different giftings. I think that's a good place to start, really, because oftentimes in any kind of team leaders can, if they're not careful, pick up people that are like them. Because obviously you just click, don't you, with people like that. So so Martin is very clear that he has a range of gifting in the team. So Warren and I are responsible for the prophetic ministry, for leading that. And actually, we've probably done it better over recent times. COVID has been great for us because it's given us space to set up the prophetic ministry how we wanted it, really.
Yeah, brilliant.
So we have like a core team of maybe, I think we've got 7 or 8 in the core team of people that we would consider to be prophets with a large P, called as a prophet. That is their, like, if you cut them through the middle, they'd be prophet all the way through. They don't just prophesy now and again. They act like prophets. They, can be a bit weird, we'll maybe talk about that another time.
Yes,
but so these are the people who are, at a certain level, I guess, of maturity in the prophetic. We meet with them. We were meeting with them weekly throughout the COVID period, and then fortnightly. Now that we're back, we're going to go monthly, but we will pray and seek God for the church. So we pray together on Zoom. They're coming to our house tonight, but we pray together, seek God for the church, and then we have either sent words into the eldership team or Martin, or we have we compiled a report as well last year.
That's right.
A prophetic report for the church. And then I'm also part of the apostolic team, prophetic team, which is over our group of churches in the prophetic. And we put together with Neville, who the friend,
good friend Neville.
We put together a report for the wider churches. And then we also arrange training with that team. We have a wider pool. Fantastic. So we have this core group, then we have a wider group that maybe has 30 prophetic people in. We've got a big church. Okay.
Yes.
So it sounds like a lot, but in a church of 500, I would still like us to have more prophetic people than that.
Spoken like a true prophet.
There must be, in my mind, I know it doesn't work like this, but in my mind, I'm thinking there's 5 Ephesians 4 gifts. So there must be about 100 prophets. There must be a fifth of the church. I know it's not like that.
No, I appreciate that. That's fantastic. That's really helpful.
For more.
No, that's really helpful, just to paint that picture of what happens in and around you. I really appreciate that, Claire. So obviously a lot of the journey sounds like it's been really healthy and things, but tell us about perhaps a more difficult circumstance or situation that perhaps has helped shape you, that could have, pushed you away, but perhaps has actually pressed you in the oil press, so to speak, into more of God. Are you able to share something for us?
I think it's actually probably more to do with my leadership journey than specifically related to my prophetic journey, although God has kind of grown me at various points as a person, as a Christian, which obviously has a knock-on effect on everything.
Absolutely.
So when we were maybe 15 years ago, something like that, the church that we were in Newcastle was going through really a tough time. And in our personal lives, we had little children. Our kids were really young. I was working part-time. Warren was working full-time, and he was traveling about 50 miles to work every day. We were part of the eldership team. I led the worship team. We each led house groups separately. Warren led a men's one, I led a ladies' one, and we were just burning everything at both ends, really. And because the church was going through a tough time, and lots of our friends left as well, and we were in that leadership position, so we felt constantly in tension, because we could understand people's issues, but we felt very loyal, and we felt like various people were misunderstood and all
Yeah,
that.
that's right. Wow.
And I started to suffer with what I knew afterwards, I think, was quite bad anxiety and depression.
Okay.
Anxiety mainly. And I became very just worried about this whole situation. I became obsessive about my children, really, and I felt like I was damaging my children.
Okay.
And I was worried about them. You know, sometimes you focus on particular things. And I felt trapped. I felt like I couldn't get out of it. You know, and as a prophet, you need space. Prophets can't be in a box. You know, the minute you feel boxed in, you know that in itself produces anxiety. So I'm a prophet, and I'm also creative. So creatives are cannot. So the fact that I couldn't speak freely, that I couldn't, not because anyone was oppressing me in any way, just because I had this tension of being honorable, being able to see the issues, not being able to do anything about it, not you know, knowing that God had something beyond this, but having to go through this terrible period and doing too much. I just became quite ill with stress. And then, you know, that verse about, I can't remember what the reference, but where it says that God will, you know, won't test you beyond what you can bear.
1 Corinthians 10.
And just kind of out of the blue, we felt like God called us to move house, actually.
Wow. Okay.
And to move nearer to where my husband was working.
Okay.
And even making decisions was really hard. So that, you know, anybody else looking at that situation would have thought, well, that's really obvious, you know, but we were so bowed down, running so fast, you know, that we just couldn't make a decision. And God spoke to us and said, you need to move. And we felt like this could potentially interrupt all of the plans that God has for us, all the things he's spoken over us about this church and all of that. And we decided, anyway, to cut a long story short, we decided to move. And then all these prophetic words came out the woodwork that people had been sitting on for ages, you know, saying, well, God told me this, but I didn't know what it meant. And now I know that it was to do with you moving, and it was God's blessing really on that. And we moved down to where we are now. And it was like, because God was in it, it was like we didn't break our stride even, you know, we just kind of went from that season into God's next season in our lives. And I had to take time out to recover. And I felt like I felt like I don't know if I can ever do this church leadership thing again. I felt totally wrung out. I felt like I couldn't trust anybody. Felt let down by everybody, people that I trusted, friends. I was just clearly, once you're out of the situation, you've got space to breathe. I just realized I was quite damaged, really. And Martin just was amazing, you know, came round, and I chatted it all through with him. And
so that was your new church leader, Martin Dunkley, who leads Tees Valley.
He came round, and I said to him, I mean, you know, when you're a leader in one church and you move to a church in the same family, people usually have things lined up for you to do, you know.
Wow.
And I, you know, and Martin had a few ideas, and I just said, I don't think I want to be a leader again, ever. And he was just really good and just encouraged me to take, I mean, Warren was working, Warren's life was a little bit more linear, you know, and he didn't particularly want to have any kind of leadership responsibility, but Martin was just like, just take 6 months, just, you know, speak the Lord,
amazing,
you know, pray, and there's no pressure to do anything. See what God says. and coming out of a very pressured environment where there were lots of expectations, and
Yeah.
into an environment
Yeah.
where there was no
Yeah.
expectations
Yeah.
apart from
Yeah.
just to be, was very healing.
Brilliant.
And also took me out of that box, to be able to just
Yes.
hear from God, where suddenly
Brilliant.
came out into a spacious place.
Yes.
I
Yes.
felt like
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
hear from
Yeah.
God, and after 6 months I did pick up a couple of responsibilities, and gradually we were healed. And I can remember speaking to my mum on the phone. My mum is very wise. She was a retired psychologist, actually.
Okay.
She's very wise and also very trained.
Yes.
I can remember, and she's a Christian, and I remember a couple of years further down the line, Martin started to talk to us about eldership, and all this fear came up in me, of, no, I can't do this again, and I was having sleepless nights. I just couldn't do it, and I couldn't figure out why I felt so awful. I was chatting to my mum on the phone one day, and I suddenly was just crying my eyes out about this decision, and I felt like I was holding Warren back and all of this. I needed to just get over myself and have faith.
Wow.
And I remember saying to my mum was like, what is the problem? What really is the root issue? And I realized that what it was that I was afraid of being hurt again.
Yeah.
In leadership.
Wow.
And I felt like leadership equals hurt, and damage and stress and all of that stuff. And my mum just said, so simple, but I just heard God. My mum just said, well, darling, you will get hurt. You can't not get hurt. But it's just about how you deal with it and how you, allowing God into that hurt.
Wow.
And it was like the most simple thing, but it was just like a revelation, really.
Wow.
Sometimes you can be a Christian a long time and not get it, So anyway, that kind of, it was a really hard time. I didn't have, apart from these little small revelations, I didn't have any massive flash of light or counseling or anything. I just kept going with God.
Yep.
Just kept
Very good.
One foot in front of the other, trusting God,
Yeah.
even though it was hard.
Yes.
Allowing people to speak into my life, and looking for counsel, which I don't really like, to be honest. Like in my natural self, I'm very independent. So it actually takes quite a lot for me to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And to talk about my feelings. And I don't always know how I feel as well. I'm quite out of touch with my feelings.
So being able to acknowledge that in the moment was obviously really, really powerful as such. No, that's
and it was like God took us from that level. My whole life has been a series of like steps, like a small step change in my gift. Not like I've gone from I started off being a little bit prophetic, got a bit more prophetic. But do you know what I mean? It's so that's like a step in my journey where I think I just followed. I've always known. I have got. There's quite a lot of steel in me, if you know what I mean. Just to that was.
Is that the sword of the spirit? No, okay.
I don't know. But I think that God, I would never walk away from God, if you know what I mean. Even when I was at art school and had all of that doubting and everything, there was something in me, a strong hook of God, always pulling me back. Brilliant. So I think that I've allowed God to pull me forward through my life.
Brilliant. Okay, Claire. So we haven't got too much more time left, probably three or 4 minutes. So that's been really, really helpful. Just then tell us what excites you prophetically. What stirs you up? What is exciting you? Are there things that stir you towards God in this time, or what you're carrying? What excites you about the prophetic?
it's just such a massive question.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay.
Next time.
That's okay. What excites me about the prophetic is like everything, really. That's what I want to say, everything. Actually, just the most basic thing of hearing the Lord, the King of Kings, Lord of all, God of ages, Lord, God of angel armies,
wow,
creator of the rolling spheres, you know, of having God speak to me.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
And just drop things in my heart, you know, big things about countries. I don't have so many of those, but big things. But I'm getting all emotional now.
Yeah.
But just the
it is.
God speaking through you into people's lives. What
amazing.
An honor. What a
Absolutely.
privilege. Isn't it incredible? So that's the main thing. But I think all prophets, you're all relating to that when I'm saying it.
That's
good. But also releasing others, I think, releasing other people in the prophetic, and seeing that for the first time in other people. We do some training from time to time, and I think when you've been around the church a long time, around the charismatic church, you think everybody must know this stuff, you know, they must have heard this hundreds of times. And then you get into these situations, doing prophetic training with people, and you see people who've never prophesied. And I've seen this in prisons, I've worked with quite a lot of quite rough people. So, in those situations where something comes out of someone's mouth, you pray for God to speak. Something comes out of someone's mouth and you think, God told you that. You could, and they're like, was that God? Was that me? And you're like, no, it nailed me. That was definitely God. So seeing other people released and growing.
Brilliant.
Prophetic. I love that.
That's brilliant.
And I love going abroad. I love prophesying completely out of my zone. I love prophesying in other countries.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Claire. It's brilliant. I wish we could go on longer. So I love this.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a chatty.
Oh no, don't worry. No, it's brilliant. No, I love I wish we could go on longer. Just beating that backwards and forwards and things, Claire. But so we'll wind down this interview now, and we look forward to having you sometime along when you can be live. But just such an honor, such a privilege to hear your story and for us to be stirred up by your story. Thank you so much indeed, Claire. Bless you.
Thanks for having me.